Gopi Garu, thank you so much for addressing. I mean, I knew some of the story, but not all of that, but amazing. And I don't know, I was your senior in school. I just realized that too. So from St. Paul's. I think it was 2018 or something, I tweeted like, China 1 medal, Gopi Chand 6 tournaments, right? And that's amazing if you understand the system that Chinese have, right? It's not one Gopi Chand there, right? It's the whole system, and you are one here. So I think, so that's what I wanted to understand. I mean, you didn't mention some of it, but the trigger to go do that, ask for, that land from the chief minister, then that to do that and all that. Because like you said, you didn't have the resources needed. Today is very easy to think about those things after what you have done and all that. So I think somewhere for us, if you can tell us the trigger again, about wanting to build that world-class, a world champion of champions, right? I mean, a lot of champions and...
Suresh, the reality is, when I think of it and I look back at my own journey, it's almost scary that I took this up. And I don't think it would be sane to do this journey again. Because it just needed to happen that way, so it happened is how I would think. Because I remember, and I 3 instances also, where I would leave home at about 4:08 in the morning. So that 4:15, I am at the badminton courts. We were living in Barani layout. Back then, that journey was about 7 minutes. And I would come back at sometimes 10 in the night, 9 in the night and stuff. And I was totally dead. So about 3 times en route from Gachibowli to the academy to home, I would park my car to the side and sleep on the road. And 3 times actually police have caught me sleeping on the road. So that is how it was. It was crazy because the amount of work, the amount of risk was taken was insane. But I also, as you rightly said, we can all think of it retrospectively. But truly, I think it's only divine grace that I've been able to do it. I remember the words of one spiritual master, Jillalamudi Amma. She was from Chirala, a small town. And she would say, the impulse, inspiration, and the intention to do it also comes from the grace. I think that is what is important. I think today I can say that I have done it or we have done it, but truly even to make this thing happen is also divine grace. So I would really think there were so many things in this whole bargain which could have gone wrong. To even save the academy from 3 chief ministers was impossible. To fight a government was impossible. But then when I look at it, I would see that at the toughest of times, somebody out of the blue comes up and helps you for no reason. And that is grace. And it was destined that this has to happen that way. And I think I'm very fortunate to be part of that story for making it happen for whatever reason. But I would really look at it that way without putting it. But if I had to do this journey, I would be really scared because it was, to think of the journey itself is very scary.
Yeah.
And in that moment, we did what had to be done.
Yeah. Actually, I think, thanks. I mean, that was excellent. And I think that's what's the opportunity to be in this game, right, or play that such a big role. And I just wanted to give you a little background about the poultry industry in India. Today, I think we give roughly employment about 2 crore people. And it's about 2 lakh crores now. But when my father started or whatever it started, the same thing, right? I mean, we doing, and if you see what's going to happen over the next 20 years, that will only be 6-7 times bigger. It's and in fact, I think there was a report once saying that poultry has created more jobs than Narega did. with no investment from government, right, obviously. So today we are number 2, officially we are not yet, but number 2 egg producer in the world. And 1965 when my dad started, I think we were in 90th or something. Probably Vatican was producing more eggs than India. But today we are number 2 in the world, and on chicken we are number 4. And still to consider that 40% of our children are malnourished, right? And 50% of the expectant mothers are this thing, right? So I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on what we have achieved. And, today I think they're close to 1,500, 2,000 people in this hall. And we are all there. And one of the reasons why we wanted actually you here is to talk about how you went through what you went through and do that. And I know about the story about the Chief Minister going after you and all that. So again, the politics is not the point. But fighting that, and getting out of that and going to court and all that, because you're not, knowing your personality, you're not, again, a very confrontational person off court, I guess. So, but that was tough. So of course, you mentioned grit and the fight and pride. So I think, could you again please tell us more about that?
Well, I think when you take up sport as a career in 1990, 85 I started playing, but literally in 90 I took this up as a career. It means that you're not thinking too much.
Yeah, especially in those days.
In those days, there's nothing like a career for a non-cricketing sport. So taking it up itself means that you've kind of abandoned logic in some sense. Because if you were to think, then it doesn't make sense. But truly, I think on the way up, you're not thinking of a plan B. And that is truly what has happened in my time as well. So we did what needed to be done, and we were ready to start off from zero if it needed to be again. And I think that's what has been the quality which sport teaches you. And having been playing sport for so long, I think that is what I've been imbibed with. But truly, it's also the family which does this, because when you're on court, you're dealing one-on-one. You lose. But when you risk your family and their lifestyle for what you are passionate about, it cannot be done without the family's support. And I'm very fortunate that they accepted that if we have to do it this way, we'll do it this way. So I think it's more happened by will, God's grace, rather than me putting together all the pieces, because it would have been impossible to put all the pieces together.
Yeah, I think Steve Jobs said that you always connect the dots backwards, right, not forward. And I think, So one of the things, Gopi, and it's been in media a lot about, if you don't eat chicken or eggs, I don't know if you said eggs, but I think it was there. You cannot, do that. I think the point I want to come to about importance of nutrition. I just wanted to give you a small example. Some years back, when Chandrababu Naidu had become Andhra CM, and he asked us, what can I do for the industry? So in those days, they were giving 3 eggs in midday meals, but actually the children were not getting 3 eggs. Somewhere it was getting lost. So I said, sir, please implement that. Make sure 3 eggs are going to the children and picked up from the farmers. So in the next few months, they fixed that, and it started happening. And 2 years later, Tamil Nadu was giving 5 or 6. So I said, how do I make Andhra do that? So, but then before I was even thinking on how, they said, we are going to do it 5. And, and I asked them, why? So they said, children marks have gone up 15%, which again, is very important for our, and 2, they said, they've grown taller. The attention in class, the absenteeism is almost gone off because they're not falling sick anymore. And they said behavior improvement. I said, what do you mean by behavior improvement? How do you measure that? They said, all teachers are like giving back feedback that children are participating in the class, asking questions, and I know which never used to happen. But especially from where you are and developing champions and all that, I think nutrition is a huge component of that, right? And for India to develop to the level it needs to, So what do you think about that? And maybe something for all of us to tell us the role we are playing in the society.
I think when we look at every Olympic cycle, we come out with the statistics saying that 1.3 billion people, 2 medals in Rio, 7 medals here, 6 medals there, and then everybody is after us. But truly, when we look at it, there are two aspects which we tend to forget. Is that 90% of the people, of the children, don't have access to sporting infrastructure. I think 90 is still a smaller number. I would think that to be even higher when you look at Olympic sporting facilities. But also an important factor which we also tend to forget is almost 60% of the kids are malnourished. So what are we looking at? In the sense, when we say this number as 1.3 billion, it's not 1.3 billion. It shrinks down drastically the moment you pick out malnutrition kids and the moment you pick out kids with no infrastructure for sport. So that's a big area. So if we need to develop ourselves for the future, nutrition is very critical and sport is very critical, and they go hand in hand. And I think there's a huge role of everybody. I'm happy that governments are doing it. I'm also happy that NGOs are doing it. And I'm sure that in the future, we will have to sort this issue even more because we are a growing population and we need to take care of these elements even more. So I think the role of industry is critical. Affordable protein, clean protein is something which we find it difficult to get in our normal food. And I think everybody in this room does a great job, and they need to push even further to ensure that more and more kids are healthy, parents are healthy, and our lifestyle is healthy. So only then we can aspire to be best. I come back to this one version. Think of sport, right? When we played sport across the world, think of what sport is. Look at Indian sport. Wrestling, Malkhamb, Kho-Kho, Kabaddi, hockey, yoga. These were the sports which India used to play. Look at the common thread between each of them. Hands and legs as equipment or sticks as equipment. That's it. Small places, more people can play. This is what sport was, very local. Shift the scenario to Europe. What do you have? You have rugby, cricket, golf, soccer. These are the sports. Big grounds, soft grounds, lot of time, and the weather is nice. In terms, they can spend morning till evening to play. This is how sport was. Sport was very localized. It was never this competition where people would come together and compete. Even the Olympic model of sport was never about competition. It was amateurs coming together to show off their skills. This is what it truly was. So today when people talk of medals and pride and winning as a very important thing, they're missing the fundamental policy. Stronger, faster, higher. Not than anybody else. To be as strong as you can be, to jump as high as you can, to run as fast as you can, to throw as high as you can. And as Aurobindo and the mother talked about physical well-being, and the word of Vivekananda which spoke about it, have always been about being the best version of what you can be. And if our kids cannot explore the length and breadth of their physical being to be as strong as they can be and lift as high as they can or run as fast as they can or run as far as they can, how can they even be visionaries on the mental side? So that for me is very critical, because let's not look at the medals as a barometer. Let us look at each person being the best version of what he can be physically. And I think if we do that, I think every aspect of that is very important, and nutrition becomes a very, very important aspect.
Yeah. So I had two more. One was a suggestion or maybe something, but before that I wanted to ask you, I don't know, after what you said, what next for Gopi? I mean, because I know badminton, you got us on, it's not done, it'll probably never be done, but I know you're now advising or part of the Olympics, this thing now, so what is Gopi going to do that we get better at Olympics? So
I think all my life I've lived with this philosophy that I don't know what comes up in the future. Let's take care of it one day at a time. If I had a goal and a dream, I'm sure it would not have been as big as what I have achieved. So I'm afraid of dreaming, because I might dream too little, too less. So for me, to take each day as it comes, God willing, we can see many good things happen, is how I would look at my life. And today things are a lot different. Back then, for the last, say, at least the first 10, 12 years of my coaching, from 2003 till 2015, 16, nobody bothered about me. So I would be isolated. Nobody thought that badminton would be a sport. Sport would be big. So people left me alone in some sense. They were more, if anybody was, they were more worried about the land than anything else. But today things are different. Today we have an ecosystem which is developed, an interest which is developed, and there are a lot more players in the ecosystem, whether it's players, parents, academies, coaches, associations, NGOs, corporates. There's a lot more people involved in sport. So today, to manage the ecosystem of sport needs a different mindset than what I had been doing over the years. It's been a bit of a challenge, because it's not something which I'm used to, but I'm forced to. Hopefully in the years to come, we will provide a system in the country where a kid who's talented, wherever from he is, whether he's from Kashmir or Kanyakumari or Mizoram or Gujarat, we can build a pathway for him to be the best in the world. And that's what I would really think to be. And I'm remembering what J.R.D. Tata has said, and this is some statement which I really like, because on one side I'm talking about physical literacy or each person to play sport. On the other side I'm talking about Olympics and best versions. So remember what he said, India doesn't become great by just removing poverty. It becomes great when you give its talented few an opportunity to be the best in the world. And that is what I look forward to. And that's what is my goal in a way, if you can see it.
Thank you. I think, so of course we as an industry, we are, I think, I want to talk about some of the things we are proud of. Like in 60s, 70s, you know, chicken used to probably lay 70, 80 eggs. Today we are talking of 450 eggs. And yeah, when I joined the business in 98, it used to take 2.1 kilos to make 1 kilo of chicken. Now we have come down to as low as 1.2 kilos. Our resource requirements, Gopi, have come down something like 70%. on feed and on water, I think around 60%. Energy usage has come down like 60-70%. So we've achieved a lot. And I think we have a very important role to play in getting to those Olympics and all that But one of the things we suffer with is every time something happens, right? Some flu, then our prices fall off and the media writes something. Corona, we had nothing to do with it, right? I mean, and then these WhatsApp messages were flying because some bat somewhere, their chicken ko laga diya. And we lost like for 2-3 months, it's amazing how many people are still in this room, because at that moment, for the first time in my life, I started feeling doubtful that, is this finished? Because we were losing 80% cash every day for 2 months. And it was lockdown. Who do we talk to? Where do we go? What do we do? So how do we fight this? And somewhere we are fighting it and all that, but what's your message to us on, how do we handle these things? Where are we missing out? Because you are somebody, you're not a direct consumer, but you make sure everybody in your, this thing eats this, right? So where do you think we are, what are we missing? Especially on the pride part somewhere.
We get affected in it is, we as badminton players play with a shuttle which has duck and goose feathers. So when bird flu hit, we were hit badly. So we had real problems because China, they said you can't import feather products or bird products from any country. And the byproduct is that we couldn't get shuttles across the country. And the sport was almost standstill for a lot of time. So this was, in fact, we had to bring this up to the PM himself in our meeting after the Thomas Cup win, because there was one circular which went out from the Animal Husbandry Ministry, which said that the shipment has to come from China to another port and sit there for 6 months and then come. So, which meant that we were not getting shuttles in the country, and the whole country had shortage of shuttles across the board. So we really struggled during that time. So I understand some bit of it from our side. But I think these are changing times with every business. I think it's important that we are alert about where the challenges are coming from. And we need to quickly be flexible in our response and build it very dynamic. I think no business of the future is going to be secure for many years the way it is. There are a lot more challenges which are going to come up, and I think it's very important to keep listening and be alert about what is happening across the world. I think that's something which I would think as a direct thing. I'm hopeful that the government is sensitive enough to listen to people and be compassionate and empathetic to entrepreneurs. Unfortunately, governments don't do that always. But unfortunately, in our country also, the reality is that politicians rule. In some sense, bureaucrats rule. And if we have to change anything, we have to become one, which is not a great place to be. But unfortunately, that's the reality of how things are, and we have to live with it. But hopefully, when some of us get to that position, hopefully we don't turn like them.
Okay. Gopi, thank you very much for that speech and inspirational this thing for all of us, for sharing your journey. I was thinking in many ways it's not in most of the poultry guys' journey has been, we've been going through this and all that. But again, phenomenal thing, and good luck to you. A lot more medals for sure you will get, but now hopefully in other sports too, not just in badminton. So with that, thank you very much. Please, a big round of applause to Gopi, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much.